Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia, and today it's about the wide receivers. That's right, the trade deadline is here. It's the holiday week, but it doesn't mean you stop paying attention to the moves you got to make to get closer to the championship, not just the moves you got to get closer to that sweet potato pie, which is also a very important move. I encourage everyone to make that move as quickly as possible to the table to do that. But first, we've got some names of some players that need you to buy low and sell high at the wide receiver position. We're going to talk about the most traded players. And to help me do it, obviously, we always have Andrew Erickson here joining us from our Fantasy Pros family. And Mason Dodd is back again from the Fantasy Flock. Go check out the YouTube channel. It's a sensation. So is he. He is the hardest working man in show business. I say it every time because he is, and I understand. I've been the one-man show many times in the past, and people don't recognize how hard it is, Mason. You do a fantastic job. So go, if you haven't already, look at the work that man is doing because it's awesome. But Mason, I got to put you to work again because this is what we do. When we're looking at these sleeper most traded wide receivers, we're going to go to a name here that's been traded more than anybody else over the past week, and he just came back. It's Keenan Allen. So people are looking right now at Keenan Allen saying, hey, this is it. This is my opportunity to get out. And some people are looking and saying, hey, look, Keenan Allen, I remember him. He was good at football once upon a time. I remember when he used to play every week. And now he's back. So, Mason Dodd, do you want to be buying him, selling him? Or if you have him, you just want to hold him?
Okay, first off, thank you for the very nice intro, but I do need to correct you. Fantasy football is not work, my friend. Okay, do not consider fantasy football work. And secondly, I mean, imagine you hold Keenan Allen the entire season, right? You're going through painfully every single week, putting yourself through the torture of, oh, is Keenan Allen going to play? Oh, he's back at practice in a limited fashion. He's going through individual drills. And then every weekend he's ruled out. He's finally back and healthy. Mike Williams goes down, and then you sell him? No, this is the time to be buying in on Keenan Allen. So, no, I'm not selling Allen at all.
All right, Erickson, how about you? Are you somebody that's also buying on Keenan Allen because this Mike Williams ankle uncertainty in what you've got here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not believing the Chargers one bit about, oh yeah, no, his ankle injury is not that serious. It's like, oh yeah, okay, sure. Like, because re-injuring your ankle is always a non-serious injury. So I expect Mike Williams to miss some time here. And that means Keenan Allen, who played on a limited snap basis, was still super productive in that game. And look, the Chargers throw the ball more than any other team in the NFL. So he's going to continue to get peppered with targets. Like, Josh Palmer's been nice stepping up, but we know that Keenan Allen, like, from a target rate per route run perspective, Keenan Allen still has the highest target rate on the Chargers. Before he went down in week 1, he led the team in targets. So I think Keenan Allen, you're feeling great about. And the fact that Mike Williams did go down, it was the best case scenario for Allen managers.
Mike Williams is one of these players that always leaves us wondering what if, and I'm frankly sick of it. I was hyping him going into the season. I'm done. I was hyping him into the season. I thought, look, finally one of these years we got to get a healthy Mike Williams for 16 games, right? 17 games. Nope, not happening. So I guess we're just never going to know the answer of what if Mike Williams plays an entire healthy season. It's just never going to happen now. So we have to move on, cut our losses, but we're not cutting losses necessarily with Keenan Allen. I'm going to throw some deals out here for these gentlemen, and they're going to tell me what move they'd rather have. Now, this guy came up with an injury last night, but he has been very productive of late. Rondale Moore or Keenan Allen. I know this is kind of swapping around guys here that are volume guys, quote unquote, but one has been playing the last few weeks. One just came back. So, Erickson, if you're looking at Rondale Moore or Keenan Allen, who would you rather have rest of season, knowing also that Keenan Allen has had re-aggravation of his injury this year as well?
Yeah, well, Rondale Moore hasn't exactly been the picture of health throughout his NFL career and college career dating back to Purdue. Yeah. So I'm very concerned that he got banged up in this last game, and it's just so tilting because Greg Dortch had a monster game, and I'm like, oh my God, that would have been Rondale Moore, but fortunately it didn't work out. So I'm going with the healthy guy here. I'm going with Keenan Allen. I don't have a lot of faith in Rondale Moore coming back from a groin injury. Just he's been banged up multiple times, even this year. So I'm going to take the healthier guy with Allen.
Now, those guys are very close right now, rest of season. So I'm going to throw another guy out there, too, because of that injury. So, Mason, I'm going to give you another guy who's very close rest of season rankings right now to where Keenan Allen is. Let's talk about George Pickens. We've talked earlier about where we think, the Kenny Pickett evolution is going, and Pickens seems to be his favorite guy, especially in those big spots looking for touchdowns. There could have been another big touchdown too, but he completely overthrew him in that game. Very frustrating for everyone who had investments in the Steelers, I'm sure, including Steeler fans. But Mason, would you rather have Keenan Allen or George Pickens rest of season?
Couple things. Dynasty, give me Pickens, obviously. Pickens looks phenomenal. Kenny Pickett, hopefully he's going to continue to get better. But from a redraft perspective, I don't see these guys even in the same tier. I don't see these guys in the same arena. You have Keenan Allen over the past 3 seasons averaging a top 10 wide receiver finish on a points per game basis. He comes in and with limited snaps, he's 8 targets from Justin Herbert his first week back in. I think Keenan Allen should be way higher than this. Can I toss a question back over to y'all? Can I ask you Keenan Allen or Christian Kirk? I think that's honestly about where I'd put him.
Well, that was my next question. If Keenan Allen is Keenan Allen of old, he is much closer to the Christian Kirk conversation, much closer to the Tyler Lockett conversation, Chris Godwin, and those guys. For me, Kirk, I think I'd rather have. Lockett, I think I'd rather have. But how about you, Erickson? Are you of this mind? You just want to jump right back into the Keenan Allen business? Because I'm still concerned about that lingering hamstring injury because it was an aggravation, because it happened the second time. To me, there's a little weakness there, and that worries me a little bit. So I'm not jumping up to that tier yet, but I understand why people want to. And Mason brings up a great point. Are you willing to do that for Keenan Allen?
Well, I think that there's obviously risk involved, but that's why there's a buying opportunity, because people are afraid, oh no, is the hamstring monster going to creep back up and take away Keenan Allen again? So it's giving you an opportunity to, because if he does stay healthy, then yeah, like you're looking at a top 10 wide receiver that you can get for way less than a top 10 wide receiver price tag. So look, if you're on the fringe of like your fantasy playoffs, you got to make a splash. I think going aggressively after Keenan Allen makes a lot of sense, because if it doesn't work out, he gets hurt again, well, you're probably going to make the fantasy playoffs anyway. But if he hits, he can be a big part of why you get into the playoffs and make some noise, especially if this Mike Williams injury, lingers for a couple more weeks.
Mason, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head of the sense of the Keenan Allen value right now. If you can get him for that other tier of wide receiver we were talking about earlier, it's a no-brainer, you do it. But you have to be real careful if, or should I say flip side, if you could cash in Keenan Allen for one of those Tyler Lockett, one of those, Chris Godwin type guys that we know the health has been there recent weeks, that's something to really consider, depending on if he's valued as old Keenan Allen or Keenan Allen who just looks old. So there you go. Let's get to another deal here for Keenan Allen. What about some bulk here? What about Treylon Burks and Joshua Palmer for Keenan Allen? Is that a buy-in, Erickson, that I can tempt you with? 2 players for 1.
I don't think so. I think I'm going to stick with Keenan Allen here. Like Burks obviously had a nice breakout game last Thursday night, and Josh Palmer's obviously filled in really well for whoever's been injured, whether it's Keenan Allen, whether it's Mike Williams, he's kind of filled in. But I still view Burks and Palmer as, wide receiver 3 type players where, they're going to have spike weeks here and there, but all in all, I feel like I can find sometimes replacement value for them on the waiver wire, picking up a guy as opposed to Keenan Allen, who you can't find a top 10 wide receiver on the waiver wire. You just can't. So I'm going to probably stick with Allen here.
Mason, this is the ultimate sell high, right? These 2 young wide receivers that we were all excited about coming into the season, coming off 2 really good games, probably the best games of their 2022 season, right? Can you package them together and get Keenan Allen? And would you if you could?
I mean, with Joshua Palmer, I agree. I think he's a clear sell high. Everybody's going nuts with Joshua Palmer in my live streams. I mean, I understand. Scores 2 touchdowns. One of them was when you still had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams both out there on the field. But yeah, I'm cashing in. Give me Keenan Allen. We've seen such a long track record. I'm assuming he's going to get healthier, play more snaps than we saw last week. And if Mike Williams is down, like Keenan Allen may be more than a top 10 receiver in a full PPR format. I think he can be a mid-wide receiver 1. Like I think he has the upside. Not saying it's guaranteed. Of course, there is risk inherently built in, but I like the ceiling.
All right, let's get to another wide receiver who's been traded the second most of any wide receiver on the Sleeper app, and that is Michael Pittman Jr. of the Colts. Erickson, back to you on this one. Michael Pittman Jr., just so you know, in half PPR, has not had a top 25 wide receiver game since week 6. That's been a long time. Now, I understand there's been change of quarterback, but they've changed back the last 2 weeks. You've seen the uptick in terms of the volume go back, 16 targets for him, and he's got 13 receptions. But Still, the touchdowns are hard to find. Last time we saw one was, well, the first week of the season. So is Michael Pittman somebody you want to buy, sell, or hold?
I think he's probably a sell for me. I think that the state of this Colts offense is you're not going to see any league-winning weeks from Michael Pittman. Like he's going to have to get like 20 targets in a game for him to have like a league-winning week just because of the volume he's seeing. He's not seeing a lot of downfield targets. They don't want to throw the ball downfield with Matt Ryan, and when they do, they're throwing it to Alec Pierce. Like he is the team's vertical threat. Paris Campbell has stepped up and is commanding targets as well in this offense. And just the offensive line, I'm still majorly concerned about. Like we can see games where if this line crumbles against a strong defensive pass rush, then no one does anything for the Colts offense. So yes, the middling production, like good target share, he's catching a lot of balls. But I think ultimately for some of these guys we're going to talk about, those guys have much higher ceilings in my opinion. So that's why I would sell, the floor of Michael Pittman for some of this ceiling upside with some of these other players.
Well, what's interesting is going into yesterday's game, Michael Pittman was still ahead of Brandon Aiyuk rest of season rankings. That is no more. So I will ask this. I don't even know if this deal is available anymore. This is a deal that maybe was out there yesterday, but after last night's game with 2 more scores for Brandon Aiyuk, maybe this deal gets pulled. But I'll ask anyway. Who would you rather have rest of season? Michael Pittman Jr. and his boring empty volume, or the splashy Brandon Aiyuk, who right now seems to be splashing all over the place? Erickson, who would you rather have?
I mean, Brandon Aiyuk could have dropped both those touchdowns, and I still would have taken Brandon Aiyuk in this situation because he's been the 49ers wide receiver 1 for like the past month. Like over 80 receiving yards, like 3 or 4 straight games. He runs more routes than Debo. He's the traditional X wide receiver on the 49ers offense. And the reason he got limited in terms of volume against the Cardinals was because the Cardinals force all the targets to the middle of the field. So to see Aiyuk have a bad game in terms of volume and still come away with 2 touchdowns, it's like, oh my God, like even in a bad matchup, he still delivered. So Aiyuk has just been someone that I continue to raise at my rankings. And it sucks, honestly, that he did score the 2 touchdowns because it makes it that harder for it to get him when he did see a game with low volume.
Right, and that's the thing. Look, Aiyuk has been really steady, and then all of a sudden it's a low-volume game, and then he's got 2 touchdowns. So Aiyuk's clearly been that guy. But you know what's so weird, Mason, is that there was such draft capital and upside attached early on in July and August to Pittman. And I know it's week 12. Nobody should care about that. But some people oddly do. Do you think people still care about the enough for Pittman, or do you think, no, it's Brandon Aiyuk and it ain't close anymore? I agree with Erickson. I don't think it's close anymore, especially after last night.
I understand I'm going to look like an idiot, and I'm willing to. Okay, I built an entire brand this offseason, hating a few guys, hating on the Michael Pittman Jr. hype, hating on the Courtland Sutton hype, hating on the Mike Williams hype. Probably something wrong with me. You probably see these tall wide receivers, and I get a little jealous that I'm not 6'4". So maybe that's why.
I was going pretty good right now. If that's the group that you were railing against, I think you look like a genius right about now.
Well, it's probably just something psychologically wrong with me. I need to talk to someone about it. But with Michael Pittman Jr., I mean, I know the touchdowns haven't been there. I know this offense is very bad. I didn't expect it to be great coming into the season. I will take him over Brandon Aiyuk. I will catch the falling knife in a full PPR format. If we take a step back, think about what's happened with Aiyuk so far this season. Mm-hmm. He got to play a large chunk of games with no George Kittle.
Right.
The majority of his games with no Christian McCaffrey in the offense, who CMC is being used as a pseudo slot wide receiver. Mm-hmm. You had Deebo Samuel getting banged up for a small stretch during the season. So I would make an argument that Brandon Aiyuk has seen a better situation up until this point than what he will see going forward. And with that being said, Michael Pittman Jr. had to play a few games with Sam Ehlinger. I think we can agree, even though hook 'em horns, Matt Ryan's probably a better option for him long term. I mean, Michael Pittman has 92 targets, 678 receiving yards. Brandon Aiyuk has 66 targets, 587 receiving yards. Now, I know it looks like a lot of empty volume because you're looking at Aiyuk with 6 touchdowns compared to Michael Pittman Jr. at 1, and I completely understand that argument. But in a full PPR format, I am maybe willing to buy into the volume with Michael Pittman Jr. at this low of a price point where I didn't ever think he was a wide receiver 1, because we should have known coming into this season that the Colts were going to be bad. Nobody knew they were going to be this bad, but still, I don't know. And please, if you're watching this, go with the guys that are smarter than me over here. Okay, don't follow this idiot down the path.
I'll tell you what, Mason. The only thing that I can say really that holds me up, and because I agree, I think the weekly theoretical floor of Pittman is something that's there and established. I have a problem, too, because he's still got that bye looming. He's still a Week 14 bye guy. So it's another week where I can't use him to get into that playoff. So that's the problem. And Aiyuk, since McCaffrey's been there, he's also rattled off a couple 80-yard games. Again, efficient, but I can't really knock a guy for being efficient. That's what people used to do to A.J. Brown, and they used to drive me crazy. I'm not saying Brandon Aiyuk is A.J. Brown, but sometimes guys are just making the most of the opportunities, and that's okay. That's a good thing. That means the offense is working. But here's another one for you. You want to talk about volume for volume. One's a better offense, especially now Dallas Goedert's going to miss some time. DeVonta Smith or Michael Pittman, Mason? Who would you rather have rest of season?
Yeah, I will go Smith, just like what you're talking about. You remove Dallas Goedert. I'm not saying Smith is going to be a completely different wide receiver, but I think he can pick up an additional 1 to 2 targets per game. I think the volume can be somewhat comparable between these guys. What I'm mainly worried about with Aiyuk is you have Kittle, Debo, CMC, and Aiyuk all in the same offense. In Philadelphia, you're just sitting with A.J. Brown alongside him, and I think that you do have a great offense in Philly, even if they are going to be a little bit more run-heavy. So at this price point, I will cash out on Michael Pittman Jr. I'll go for DeVonta Smith.
Erickson, same thing for you. Smith over Pittman?
Yeah, I mean, last week Smith had a 39% target share without Dallas Goedert, and that's not going to change because he's out for at least the next 3 weeks. So I think that comparing it to the 49ers, where Aiyuk has 3 other guys he has to compete with, DeVonta Smith is just A.J. Brown. Like, that's it. So the offense goes to those 2 guys. So I think Smith is definitely the guy I want for Pittman.
Now, if you all need extra help when we're not around, and typically we are, I mean, we do a lot of shows here, we do a lot of articles, a lot of content for you, but we have a new tool, Trade Central, that automatically analyzes every team in your redraft league and identifies team strengths and weaknesses. Even though you think your team doesn't have any weaknesses, it probably has 1 or 2. And if you're a premium subscriber, it'll automatically find the top trades you can make. So it takes all the guesswork out of everything. So check out Trade Central. And again, remember, go premium over at fantasypros.com/offers. So when you go premium at fantasypros.com/offers, you get 6 free months of Fantasy Pros. You turn that into My Playbook, which is fantasypros.com/myplaybook. Download the app or just go to fantasypros.com/myplaybook. Use Trade Central. This is it. This is the time where champions are made. So let us help you with our amazing tools of Fantasy Pros to go and do that. So let's talk about the wide receivers to buy low on. Mason Dodd, give me your first guy. Who you want to buy low at wide receiver here at the trade deadline?
I'm going to go A.J. Brown. I know A.J. Brown hasn't really done much over the past 2 weeks. Over the past 2 weeks, he has 6 receptions for 67 receiving yards. But just like what we got done talking about with DeVonta Smith, I mean, these 2 guys are combining for over 50% of the targets in Philadelphia right now. And with A.J. Brown, this is kind of who he is. He's a wide receiver that does rely on efficiency, that is going to have these massive spike weeks, but occasionally will let you down. But I'm willing to buy into him still as that top 10 wide receiver easily, knowing that if we look at what he's done so far this season, he has a game with 10 receptions, 155 receiving yards. He has a game with 6 receptions, 156 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. Hard to find someone that has a higher weekly ceiling than Brown. You remove Dallas Goedert. Like I said with DeVonta Smith, I don't think it immediately makes A.J. Brown 10 times better, but maybe he picks up an extra target or 2. So I like Brown.
Yeah. You had me at he's had 2 bad weeks. I mean, that's what you do. 8 points in the last 2 weeks. If he is not the biggest, buy low candidate at wide receiver, I don't know who is. I think you nailed it there. Erickson, who do you have here at the buy low wide receiver spot?
Yeah, I'm looking at another NFC East receiver coming off a bad game. Terry McLaurin, 4 balls for 55 yards in week 11, but all the usage marks were there. 100 air yards, 51% air yard share, 30% target share. And look, he's playing the Atlanta Falcons this week, so it's a great matchup. And the Texans matchup was never really that good for wide receivers anyway, just because teams just run the ball on them. So I didn't expect McLaurin to necessarily blow up in the spot. But with Taylor Heineke under center, McLaurin, 30% target share. He's seeing 50% of the air yards in the offense. Like, he is the entire passing game for Taylor Heineke and this Washington Commanders offense. So, I mean, he's averaging just under 17 fantasy points per game in PPR, 6 catches, 93 receiving yards per game with Taylor Heineke. So, I mean, Terry McLaurin, if I can sell like a Seattle Seahawks receiver or DBro, like for McLaurin in his locked and loaded #1 alpha status, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, be careful, everybody. He does have that bye in week 14 still looming, but he's got Atlanta, the Giants, the bye, the Giants, then San Fran and Cleveland. So pretty good schedule for the most part there. A little tough one, obviously, against San Francisco. Let's flip the script here, gentlemen. Erickson, who are you trying to unload here? Who is your top sell-high wide receiver for week 12?
Yeah, this one was tough for me to try to figure out a sell-high wide receiver, but I Juju Smith-Schuster because of where he's ranked in the rest of the season ranking. So he's wide receiver 23, and there are just too many signs for me that point to him just being someone I'm trying to move off of. Look, the Chiefs have the number one toughest strength of schedule left per FantasyPros strength of schedule tool for wide receivers. It's the third toughest per PFF. They have to face the Denver Broncos 2 more times. They still haven't played Denver this year. And when you look at Juju, and when he had that hot streak of his last 3 games before his injury, his target share didn't change in the offense. He was still sitting right under 20% at 19%. So he wasn't seeing more volume, except he was just ripping off like massive plays after the catch. He was scoring more touchdowns. His usage was as wide receiver 29 and half points per game. So he's really still a wide receiver 3, honestly, just based on how he's used in the Chiefs offense. It's Travis Kelce and then whoever Patrick Mahomes decides he wants to throw the ball to that particular week. And it obviously depends a lot on the coverage that the other defense is using. So I think Smith-Schuster really is more of a wide receiver 3 rest of the season than where he is as a top 24 guy in the rest of the season rankings. So if I can sell him off of, Kadarius Toney's hurt, Juju is going to come back, MVS doesn't get targets, that's what I would probably do, especially the Chiefs coming off that massive game where, Patrick Mahomes, like, he's so good. It's like, we've seen Juju play with Patrick Mahomes for a long time, and for more often than not, he has underwhelmed from a fantasy perspective. So I would be trying to move off Juju.
The 2 looming matchups with Denver, I think, is a lot to consider. Also, to consider, absence makes the heart grow fonder, too. You know, last time we saw him, he looked so good for a couple weeks in a row, and then the injury. I wonder if you can get Terry McLaurin straight up for him. I bet you can. Bet you can in a lot more leagues than you realize. That's a trade you might want to make. All right, Mason Dodd, what's a trade you want to make? Who is off the island at wide receiver for you at the trade deadline?
I hate saying this. Christian Watson, someone I have in a lot of best ball leagues. I wish he was the wide receiver 1 here rest of season. I wish he was the bona fide alpha. But coming off of 2 weeks where he just absolutely smashed, I think that he could be an intriguing sell high candidate, because if we look at the target share that we had this past week, Christian Watson dominated with 2 receiving touchdowns, 4 receptions, 48 receiving yards. But I'm less excited about him now than I was last week. Like, I'm literally less excited.
Well, we wanted to sell him last week on the show. Okay. And if you bought him from us, you did pretty well last week. But there's another guy, too, who still got that bye looming in week 14. So why is he not the guy? Why have we seen the best of him that we're going to see all year, in your opinion?
You had 39 attempts for Aaron Rodgers this past week, and the man had 6 targets. The man is just not getting the volume. You had 6 targets going over to Randall Cobb. You had 11 targets going to Allen Lazard. You had 7 targets going to Aaron Jones. And Romeo Doubs sounds like maybe he's not going to be back this week, but it sounds like Romeo Doubs could be back the week following. So I really didn't like Allen Lazard coming into the year, because I think it's maybe an easy spot to avoid whoever the wide receiver 1 is for Aaron Rodgers, given the fact that there are so many names here that these targets are going to be dispersed, and clearly the offense isn't what we've seen in years past. So I'm really hoping I'm wrong. I'm really hoping the excitement that we had with Christian Watson last week should be the excitement we have rest of season, but I think it is a good cashing out point.
All right, there you have it. Let's move to your questions here for a little 3 and out, where we take your questions straight from our listener mailbag over on our Discord, fantasypros.com/chat. Again, free to join, but when you are a premium member, you get access to stages, AMAs, and a whole lot more. It's a fantastic community. We even got the touchdown call contest going on still. So here are the questions. Let's go to DC Metro. Trade away Chris Godwin and Wilson for Amon-Ra or Lamb. Mason, number 1, do you think you can even pull this off? Like, I know we're all excited maybe that Mike White's going to take over at some point for Zach Wilson, but can you pull off Godwin and Wilson for Amon-Ra or Lamb? I don't think that's enough, do you?
So this is Garrett Wilson, not Russell Wilson?
I assume it's Garrett Wilson.
Okay,
Let's say
because I was going to say, if it is Russell Wilson, you have to keep Russ. I mean, I'm assuming that the Denver Broncos are going to let him cook sometime soon, and he should be the quarterback 1 overall rest of season, but that's just a small hunch I have, and if we're going to be looking at Garrett Wilson and Chris Godwin,
that was a lot to take in. Did you just say the words that Russell Wilson's going to be the quarterback 1 rest of the season? Are you feeling all right? Are you okay?
Wait, Russell Wilson's not going to be the quarterback 1. Did you not hear everybody coming into the season saying the Denver Broncos were going to win the division?
That's true. I also remember everybody talking about how good the AFC West was going to be, and that has not been the case.
Okay, let me go pull up. I haven't watched a Denver game this year. Maybe out of the loop. Maybe something has happened. But
I love the sarcasm. It's so fun. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, you got to sell for Amon-Ra St. Brown or CeeDee Lamb. I mean, these are bona fide stud alpha wide receivers. With St. Brown, I know some people are maybe going to be worried if Jameson Williams comes in. they're two completely different wide receivers. Like, honestly, absolutely. They kind of play two different positions, with Jameson Williams being the field stretching option, Amon-Ra St. Brown being the chain mover. Maybe Jameson's a little more valuable for the Detroit Lions, and how important that speed is for how defensive coordinators have to go through and adjust their game plan on how they scheme against the Detroit Lions. But from a fantasy football standpoint, volume's king, receptions are king. That's what the pseudo flanker, slot wide receiver, whatever you want to call him, is with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think you take the stud receiver.
I don't think you could pull this off for Lamb. You could probably pull it off for Amon-Ra, especially if you do get the news of the quarterback switch here for the Jets, and people go, oh yeah, renewed optimism again, hooray for Garrett Wilson, which I love Garrett Wilson, but Amon-Ra, something about playing for the Lions, and he's not a big touchdown machine either. He is a volume stud, but touchdowns are not his thing. He hasn't had a touchdown since week 2. He's got 3 on the year, and 2 of them were in week 2, and the other one was in week 1, so it's been a while. Andrew Erickson, let's go to the next question here from Franco. Got offered Chase for Pollard and Drake London. Do I accept that in a full PPR? I'm getting a lot of Chase questions about, is this the time to trade him away? Do I want to trade for him? I understand the unrest in the market, and I'm a little worried myself about what Jamar Chase we're going to get when he does return eventually. So what side would you rather be on? Do you want Pollard, who looks spectacular the last 3 times out, and London, or do you want the swing big but potential miss of Chase?
I guess it depends on my record. Like, if I feel good about a playoff spot, then I have no problem trying to get the a top 5 wide receiver with Jamar Chase, knowing that I'm going to make the playoffs anyway, and he can be a difference maker for me. And I feel good about the other positions. I can give up Pollard, who was a guy that you were drafting not necessarily as a starter, so you might actually have other running backs that you can use. And Drake London has really been a guy that you haven't been starting over the last couple of weeks, just because he hasn't been seeing any volume in the offense. So I think it depends. If I need wins now, like, I want to stay in the flames with Tony Pollard because the guy's on absolute fire, and Drake London has a little bit of a boost with Kyle Pitts now out of the lineup. So I do like those guys, but if I am locked into a playoff spot and I can get Chase on for this price, I think that it's fair. And maybe even a little bit of overpay, honestly, just because of how good Pollard has been. But once Chase gets back on the field, if he is what he is, then it'll be worth it.
It will, but it's an if. I struggle with the if. So let's go to Hammy Takes. Last one here. James Robinson, Zay Jones, and Keenan Allen, or Michael Carter and Brian Robinson. This seems like a no-brainer to me, guys. We want the Keenan Allen side of this trade, correct? Yes, we're all taking that side.
You could just get rid of James. Zay Jones, James Robinson don't even need to be in the trade, honestly. just to give me Keenan.
Honestly, just get Keenan Allen for Michael Carter and Brian Robinson. That's all you need to do. And one last note before we go. If you're in leagues, everyone, where you're upset because some bottom-feeding team is trading up some really good players in a redraft league to some team that doesn't need it, and it's making everybody kind of purse their eyebrows and think, well, maybe they're up to something. Here's an easy rule to fix all that. Once you're eliminated from playoff contention, you're not allowed to trade. See how easy that is? I just solved all of your problems. So remember that when you're creating your leagues next year, it's a little wrinkle, it's a little rule that saves everybody a lot of issues. And then you can all come to Thanksgiving with all your family and friends, and nobody is mad at each other. There you go. Mason Dodd, never mad at you. Always happy that you're here joining us. Go check out the Fantasy Flock network over on the Twitter machine. It is a fantastic place to find fantasy football live streams, to find fantasy football content, and go follow Mason Dodd over on the Twitter machine as well at Mason Dodd FFN. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Mason Dodd and Andrew Erickson, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.